Okay, good morning, Leo. Good morning to you. Big morning this morning. You've just released a very important RNS. Been a lot of speculation. You announced it would be on Monday, the 27th of April, and here we are. And clearly, it's good news. You've got oil, but it's quite a complicated well. So perhaps you could just explain to us first, in sort of layman's terms, just how good is this?
To get it right, this is a massive result for us and a massive result for me personally. I was looking at some statistics. People may not realize how difficult it is to drill a well in this environment as a small company. But I spent 3 months in the spare bedroom. I'm not very popular with my wife. Over the duration of drilling, more than 5,000 WhatsApp messages were sent, because that's effectively how we command and control from distance. Works very well. And out of that 5,000 messages, more than 1,000, I think exact 1,024, were from me, telling the crews which way to go and how to move and what to do next. It was not easy, but it is, as I say, a massive result to find oil in the lower cruise, which was our primary target, and not just oil, the best oil you can imagine, 40 API crude, and to confirm the middle cruise and the upper cruise also as oil bearing is a massive result. This is what we've been working on for the last 3 years.
I mean, we'll maybe come back on to the complication of it all, but I mean, you know, reading your RNS here, there's lots of information, but it's not a case of drill a well, out it comes, and by the way, guys, it's flowing at, 500 barrels a day. What exactly makes you so excited about this? I mean, I get the point, it's 40 APIs, very high quality, although the quality varies, doesn't it, between the different cruise levels. But I mean, can you sort of say how much oil will this produce? You've mentioned you're already producing a little bit, which is great. Interested to know what you're doing with that. I think you said you've sold that to Heritage, but maybe you're storing some of it now rather than selling it with the current oil price. But how much oil could this be?
Oh, there's a lot of questions in that one sentence. Let me first start on the complication of drilling. If you look at the Southwest Peninsula and look at the surrounding wells, none of the wells got beyond 2,000 foot. So 2,000 foot was the benchmark, and that's where the Bonas field is producing from, and that's where the Kakos field is producing from. A 2,000 foot well is simple. You drill down and you can finish that in a week, maybe 2 weeks, but then you've got a producing well. The problem comes when you have to go through that detachment service. That service which we show on the cross section, that's where the earth, Mother Nature, has been pushing and forcing stuff around. And we discovered that is very, very high pressure formations. So 0.9 psi per foot, that's the weight of the fluid we had to use, and that's heavy enough to nearly make a rock float on the fluid. So that's a type of drilling conditions we needed to get to the lower cruise. Once we got through that difficult spot, it was around 3,500 foot. Drilling became easier, and we were back in normal geology and normal environment, which for me suggests that across the area where we're operating, below this magic 3,500 foot level, there is a lot more oil to discover. So that's hopefully talking through the complication of drilling and giving you some context. And also why it's so important to discover crude in the lower cruise, because it is below that magic point. And on seismic, we see big structures. So this was just the first structure we drilled. And we talked about it before. We see at least 12 further structures like this, some shallower, some deeper. So this is the first well, and normally a first well you get wrong, but we got it right, fortunately. So the quality of the crude is important, and why? Because it's fundamentally different from the quality of the crude of the upper and middle cruise. So the lower cruise has got this very high 40 API crude. The upper middle cruise is between 17 and 20. So that suggests it's two different geological systems.
What you'd expect, because heavy oil tends to come up to the surface, doesn't it? But will you be able, will this oil be free flowing, or will you have to put pressure in to get it to come up? I mean, coming back to how you're actually going to produce.
That's another life-changing moment. So after having spent 3 months in the spare bedroom, we were then ready to start perforate the first zone. In anticipation, of course, it was 1 o'clock at night. Guns went off, and then bang, we saw 1800 psi pressure on the tubing, and that's a lot of pressure. So to your answer, this oil will come out flying. I've got pictures from fluids coming out of the drill string. This wants to flow. This wants to flow so bad that it comes with a lot of sand and solids and debris, which was some of the complications we had during drilling. We were unable to cement our last casing string in place because of the difficult hole conditions. And as a result, the production tests were a bit harder than what the normally is. But the most important thing is we got the 40 API crude to surface. And in future developments, I suspect this wells like this can easily per zone do 500 barrels per zone. So there's a lot of potential, initial rates. And then over time, the first year or two, they'll be free flowing. And then we can convert them to pumped wells and get the rest of the reserves up.
So again, I mean, I don't want to put words in your mouth or say anything that wasn't in the RNS, but I mean, it sounds to me as though what you're really saying is, look, there's a commercial discovery here. Obviously, we've got to think a little bit about the oil price when that goes back to normality. And actually, what we've got to do is do a bit more work to understand how we get the best out of this well. And of course, in the RNS, you've also announced you've brought in a farming partner to do Saffron too, which clearly, with what you've learned presumably from this well, potentially could be even better.
Exactly. So that's a very, very important point. So there is no slowdown in the further development of Saffron. So we've secured this. We signed terms with a partner, and the partner was involved in drilling the well. So they know all the problems we've had. They know all the complications. Despite that, they're prepared to take not only the risk of drilling the well, but also the subsurface risk of being paid for the well. So it's zero risk for Columbus. Navi, that's the company involved. They take full risk of drilling the second well in Saffron, and I call it an appraisal/development well. So that well will properly complete on the lower cruise, having learned what we've learned now in Saffron 1, and that will be our first production well. We plan,
and presumably you've cut what I was describing sort of standard farming type deal, so that the economics are quite good for your partner, but you still get a very good bang for your buck yourself.
Absolutely. So it's fully risked. It is contingent on the oil price recovering, because this oil price is ridiculous. I think we need 35 plus, but that's fine. I believe we'll get there eventually. The terms are such that it's like a production sharing contract. Initially, the first production will 75% of the revenues, net revenues, will go towards repaying the well. And then once the well is repaid, the commercial terms change, and then Nabi gets 25% of the remaining production of the well, and Columbus gets 75%. So
and just as a sort of reminder, this oil in the Southwest Peninsula, you don't actually have to sell it to Heritage, do you? You can sell it on the beach if you want, can't you?
So there's I think in the presentation, which is online now, we have worked out one scenario where we develop the lower cruise in Saffron, lay a pipeline to the nearby infrastructure, and that pipeline is then a leased pipeline. Those economics are very, very robust. It's 90 million NPV for that project. And then considering that the first well is carried, there is very limited further development capex required from a Columbus perspective. So that shows you the robustness of what we've discovered. That's one scenario. The other scenario, which I like best, is that we find more oil in the area, and we prepare our own offshore loading facilities in the Southwest Peninsula. The Southwest Peninsula, it's between two seas, so it's relatively easy to have a short pipeline, 500 meters, just out with a buoy where tankers can start taking crude from the Southwest Peninsula, and then we're open to the global market. We are not limited to sell to heritage.
And you can get US dollars as well. And presumably, if you did something like that, an oil trader would actually come along and finance it for you all and pay you up front, and actually it'd be very good position.
Exactly. I suspect that a trader would be interested in providing us partly with the infrastructure to be able to export that crude for their own.
I mean, if Saffron too is successful as well, and you do basically prove that Southwest Peninsula is a very oil-rich area, which is why you sort of joined the company in the first place, then you're probably going to have oil traders all over you, aren't you?
I would expect so, and that's hopefully where you come in.
And look, I mean, I think just going back to the difficulty of drilling the well, you explained most of the things. I mean, I think even you yourself would admit that it was a little bit harder than you had expected, but that's why no one else has been there. It was difficult, and actually, unless you'd had the skills that you and the team have of drilling complicated wells, it probably would have gone wrong as it has done in the past. But I'm complimenting you hugely there, Leo. But I mean, I think that's true. It's because of you that you've actually been able to succeed.
It's unlike you, Andrew, to compliment me. Normally, you give me a hard time. But yes, before drilling the well, we had a whole list of drilling risks, specific drilling risks. This can go wrong. We can run into losses. We can have overpressured shales. We can get stuck pipe. I think the list had 10 items, and all of those 10 items we encountered, and worse. I would have never expected to have to use 17.5 pounds per gallon mud to get through this high pressure shale. But persistence, sticking with it, not giving up, close communication. I think the team on location did an excellent job. The Trini drillers, they've got a global reputation of being good drillers, but they showed what they were worth. They got us out of trouble a few times. I don't want to scare people off. So we now understand these issues, and we can design future wells to better deal with them.
And of course, it's always difficult when you're doing something like this to actually give regular communication to your shareholders, because you can't really, whilst this is all going on, you unfortunately have to sort of sit there quietly, just getting on with it. As you say, you're almost in lockdown 3 months earlier in your spare bedroom by the sounds of it. And it's difficult to update them. But I mean, your shareholders have obviously been, certainly your institutional shareholders, your big shareholders, have been very patient and loyal, which you must be appreciative of. There's always been quite a good retail element, because retailers found it quite difficult, this sort of silence. Hopefully this now you're able to come out and talk a lot more.
Yeah, I'm really grateful to the people sticking with us. We have a lot of retail investors, and I've got contact with several of them. I'm not giving them information, but I'm always very appreciative of their support. Our institutions, we have tested their patience, but I would like to think that we've turned the corner now. This is like I said, this is what the team has been working for 3 years, and yeah, I'm over the moon, as you probably can see from the interview.
Yeah, and I mean, you've also put out today, as well as the RNS, an updated presentation on the whole group, because of course it's not just about the Southwest Peninsula. You've got Suriname, which I know you're very excited about, and there are other things obviously within Trinidad, and the whole way you want to build a big group. Let me just ask you one other question, because I'm sure it's on shareholders' mind side. I mean, it's been a tough 3 years since you came in. Believe it or not, you've been there nearly 3 years. You were a young man when you joined, Leo. I mean, it's been tougher than I think you expected. But do you think, you used the phrase just now, round the corner? I think you have turned the corner now, haven't you? It does look now as though the sun and the light at the end of the tunnel is there. Would that be fair?
Yeah, we've got the COVID-19 cloud hanging, of course, but yes, the sun is for Columbus. The sun is on the horizon. So a significant discovery in 2 zones in the Southwest Peninsula, proving up the play. Very important milestone. We are getting a lot of traction with Heritage on renegotiating terms on some of our existing fields, producing fields, because over time we found that we didn't like the economics. So we're making good inroads in improving those economics. The Suriname work program and budget is completed, is approved now by Staatsolie, and we're getting cracking on getting those extended well tests going. Yeah, there's a lot of blue sky.
And of course, you're doing all the prudent cash management, etc. So you're actually in not a bad position really at the moment. I mean, probably to say after 3 years, probably the first time you're able to sit back and maybe have a small gin and tonic and say, actually, you know what, could be good going on from here. Is that fair? It obviously, by the look on your face, it is.
yeah, but I don't think it's time to lay back and sit back and rest back yet. It is now the company's going to change direction. So we were a mature asset operator focused on cost, making sure the profitability comes up and getting the exploration opportunity mature and finding an expansion portfolio in South America. Now we're going to be becoming a development company. So we've got mature assets where we want them with improved commercial terms. Now we've got 2 developments probably in the Southwest Peninsula, one specific development for the high quality lower cruise crude, and one development for the middle cruise. And we've got Suriname first extended well test and probably leading into a further development. So the change, there's a shift with the direction of the business now.
And I mean, we probably ought to wrap it up now because we've been chatting for some time. Always good to chat. One final question though for you perhaps. And I mean, we're sitting probably the most unprecedented oil markets ever. I mean, have you ever seen anything like this before? And just out of interest, how do you think it might end up?
This is uncharted territory. I'm an optimist by nature, and if you look at the stock exchange and the way the exchanges all over the world are behaving, yes, they've taken a big bath, but they've stabilized now, and quite a few stocks have started climbing already. So people have picked the bottom of the market. So I think if you get in now, it's the right time to get in.
And the oil price, I mean, have you ever seen it go negative before?
That's a technicality. First of all, that's a completely odd technicality. No one has seen that go negative before. Where do I think oil price goes? I think the next 2 quarters will be tough. So we've made sure that our business, Columbus, we're okay for the next 6 months. So the actions we've taken, we're in a good place. And then I suspect the forward curves are a good indication of where it's going. The economics we're running on our projects are around $45 per barrel. I think that is a realistic oil price for the time when the crude starts coming to surface.
And that is what the forward curve is saying out to sort of 2025, isn't it?
Yeah.
Leo, it's been really good to talk to you this morning. I hope that people enjoy our chat. It's obviously very casual and relaxed in our homes with working from home, but let's see what the future holds. But it does look pretty bright. Thanks a lot, Leo.
Thank you very much for your time.